this is super exciting, but you gotta calm down. Guys! Oh, thank you. It's official, lovely pink bunnies. Please remain calm, or as calm as you can be, as the blackout is here. Melanie Martinez is releasing a brand new double album this year, and I thought it was a perfect time to finally get off the couch and stop procrastinating on the remake of my video from actually not too long ago. Also, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support that you gave the original video. I'm so glad I was able to teach you guys stuff about her lore and help you understand it better, as well as just be a source of comfort for you guys. Now, you're probably wondering, if you got all these views and support, why remake the video and unlist it then? And I'll tell you why, because my channel has changed a lot since then. My sound quality was awful. I recorded it during a thunderstorm so you could barely hear me, and I'm also not showing my face on YouTube anymore for
many different reasons.
And I honestly feel like I should have just waited until the Portals era was done, because little did I know there would only be a few more music videos after that point anyway, which, don't worry, we'll talk about that. Now, before I let you guys go and actually enjoy the real video, I wanted to note one last thing before we start. This video is only focused on Crybaby's lore, as in the character, only the character. Melanie is the creator, Crybaby is the character. I can make a separate video on Melanie's career if you're interested, but this video is only going to be talking about Crybaby and the music videos that involve her character. Some people couldn't understand that for some reason in my last video and were saying, what about this, but they're not a part of her story. Melanie confirmed that the EPs are not a part of Crybaby's story, so with that said, let's actually get into it now. Crybaby's mom and dad are not the healthiest couple, but even so, they decide to start a family, having a son and eventually a daughter. Her mom exclaims,
"God, she's a crybaby."
Which her brother takes literally and signs the birth certificate as Crybaby, officially naming her after the thing that Melanie was called by bullies in her real life. I find it really inspiring that she took something she used to be insulted for into a more independent and powerful character, and now her fanbase calls themselves Crybabies, and it's not used as an insult anymore.
Bring, life into this character that is this nickname that I got called when I was a kid that was supposed to be an insult, but I wanted to turn it into a compliment.
And so, Crybaby is born into the world successfully. Unfortunately, as soon as she is, though, she's exposed to neglect from her father and her mother's extreme alcoholic addiction. We see that she is experiencing her first exposure to her wild imaginations, or more so, her empathic powers. Remember that nurse with the black eyes? Well, in this universe, there are people born into the world with powers, who are called empaths. They were granted these powers by the beautiful and mysterious, elusive Lilith, a being that visits you in your dreams and guides you through life until you eventually die and meet with her to ascend to your next life. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Back to Crybaby. Crybaby starts crying and eventually fills up her entire room with tears, which this could be interpreted in two different ways. One, she actually was able to do this due to her empathic powers, or two, it's just a metaphor to show how sad, neglected, and abused Crybaby is. Either way, it's quite tragic to watch, and mind you, this is only the start of Crybaby's life. We've got 2 whole more albums to go. Then we have an incredible transition to Dollhouse that we don't really see any credit for, like, come on fandom, let's talk about this. Dollhouse introduces us to more of Crybaby's family life. They are the perfect classic family, at least that's what they want you to think, but behind closed doors, everyone is a mess. Crybaby's brother is now older, going through his angsty teen phase and addicted to smoking, and loves to shut Crybaby out. Her dad is out cheating on her mom with a mistress, and her mom drinks away all the pain. Meanwhile, Crybaby sits trying to understand what's going on in her family, seeing through the curtains and the facade that they put on when other people are around. Maybe if the neighbors are coming around, they're just like, yeah, we're perfect! But Crybaby knows the truth. We see Crybaby interact with this little girl, and I think this is a metaphor for a fellow kid in her kindergarten. Maybe she briefly interacted with them, and maybe she tried to open up about what's going on, but the kid was forced to stay quiet about it. There's been some theories online that this kid grew up to be the Tunnel Vision fan, and I actually love this theory. I think it would make so much sense why she's drawn to Crybaby's energy, maybe not even knowing it's her new life in the future. Sippy Cup is where it gets even darker than before, so buckle up. Crybaby's mom officially sees the cheating scandal take place while she's drunk on the floor and completely loses it. She ties them up, and next thing you know, Crybaby's dad and his mistress are both dead. Like most little kids who are restless at night, Crybaby woke up due to the bright headlights outside from her dad's car, and eventually after hearing some weird noises, she decided she couldn't stay in bed any longer, heading out to the kitchen to see what happened. Unfortunately, this leaves Crybaby to discover her father's own dead body right before her eyes. I feel like we don't talk about how intensely depressing this is, which is why what happens next is almost for the best in a way. Crybaby is then put to sleep with a chloroform cloth because her mom is just... yikes. She's a lot of things. Putting her back into the bed and giving her a sippy cup. The next day, Crybaby wakes up remembering nothing. It's not 100% confirmed whether Crybaby ever found out about her dad's passing. I'm sure eventually she figured it out, but I don't think she'll ever know that it was from her mom again. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Crybaby's mom made up a whole elaborate story on where he went instead of just saying that he passed away. Anyways, Crybaby decides to go to the carnival to have some fun after all the stress, but even that situation becomes troublesome for her. She gets a crush on a young boy around her age who she calls Alphabet Boy. He's tall enough to ride some of the bigger rides, which immediately impresses and enamors Crybaby. She follows him all around the carnival, and eventually he takes advantage of her feelings for him and ties her onto the carousel until she feels sick from all of the cotton candy that he seemingly fed her. Most of these context clues are from the Crybaby storybook. After that, Crybaby decides to get revenge on Alphabet Boy by singing about how she's much more grown up than he is. She knows how to spell her name on a fridge and knows all her facts. All he does is brag about his achievements and shows off. This is the first time we see Crybaby display an alarming mirroring to her mother's behaviors, something that I think Melanie portrayed really well. Unfortunately, kids see their parents do something and they do it back. They learn everything from their parents. And if your mom is waving a knife around and drinking booze 24/7, most times they'll follow suit, no matter how young. Eventually, Crybaby gets a bigger and much more serious crush on Johnny, a young boy her age who she gets extremely nervous around every time she talks to him. She feels like it'll be the end of the world if she opens up to him about her feelings and doesn't want to say the wrong thing. Relatable. It seems that Johnny and Crybaby were raised as childhood friends, and this would explain why she's so nervous to tell him her feelings, as it could change everything about their relationship. But thankfully, Crybaby is successfully able to confess her feelings to Johnny, and they begin to date. She teaches Johnny how to ride without training wheels, which is just so cute and wholesome. But unfortunately, it seems that she's struggling to see Johnny's effort in the relationship. She feels like she's always putting in all of the work and not really ever having it reciprocated. But despite that, she still loves and adores him and wants this relationship to work out. And a little fun fact for you guys, Johnny and Crybaby are wearing matching bows in the music video, which is just so cute. Crybaby decides to throw a birthday party, so she invites all of her close friends, including Johnny, of course, and she also invites Beth Ann, who is speculated to be this girl that we'll meet later. Crybaby sets up all of the decorations by herself, getting dressed up in a beautiful party gown and playing all her favorite records. Then she waits for the guests to arrive, and waits, and waits, and waits, and waits, and waits, and waits, until no one arrives. Johnny completely ghosted her. Everyone that she thought she loved, completely gone without a trace. Not even her own family wanted to attend her party. Not even her own brother. So naturally, Crybaby starts throwing a tantrum, destroying the decorations, the cake, and even some of her own toys with rage. This is where we once again get to see her use her empath powers and mirror her mom's behaviors. Crybaby uses her powers to create imaginary friend party hats, which I think is super cute, and this is officially where Crybaby learns that unfortunately, the world can be a very cruel place. Not only did her boyfriend ghost her, but also her friends and even her family too, beginning Crybaby's lonely and depressive arc in her story. We then see Crybaby go outside and throw away all of the party supplies, and decides to go out to the store to buy some groceries for her family. Meanwhile, the local ice cream man, who's actually
The big bad wolf.
is driving the ice cream truck looking for his next victim. The cashier at the grocery store gives Crybaby
A little glass
of
vial.
poison, but Crybaby's a little confused why. Shortly after, Crybaby, being the kid she is, wants some ice cream, so naturally she goes up to the big bad wolf, and he insists on her getting this specific flavor for free. That's a little suspicious, and next thing you know... The The original story of Little Red Riding Hood actually is an allegory for this and stranger danger in general, which is why I love that Melanie incorporated the Big Bad Wolf as the perpetrator because, well, it just fits. And obviously, it's very disturbing and uncomfortable, and when the music video first came out, it was very controversial, but not really for the reason it is considered controversial now. At the time, it was more in a way of, wow, I can't believe someone's actually talking about this, because in 2015, it was hard to find anyone being very outspoken about stuff, especially not this blatantly and just out for all to see. The Big Bad Wolf is portrayed by Cottontail, which is a drag queen and a songwriter herself. She's also been friends with Melanie for years, and I'm happy to inform you that she still is to this day. Now, it's pretty commonly known in the fandom that Melanie's real-life brother is the one that plays the Big Bad Wolf, but there's a chance that this is only on the tour, because if you didn't know, the Big Bad Wolf also appears on stage, which is really cool. People believe that this is her brother, not Cottontail, but I personally believe it could be Cottontail, because at the time, Cottontail was Melanie's assistant, so it would make sense if she was able to join her on tour and be the Big Bad Wolf for her, and also be the bunny head doctor. But, you know, the Big Bad Wolf and the Doctor both grab Melanie in ways that people felt like she wouldn't be comfortable with anyone touching her in that way unless it was someone she knew really well. There was actually a meet and greet where you could meet the Big Bad Wolf, so if anyone watching this video attended that, did the Big Bad Wolf talk? Maybe that would be our one way to figure out who it is. But regardless, the Big Bad Wolf was portrayed by Cottontail in the music videos. But anyways, let's get back to Crybaby's story. So, Crybaby was at her loneliest and most vulnerable point in her life, which is what led her to being taken and manipulated so easily, as well as the fact she's just a kid who loves ice cream. So, she was taken away into his van and no one even knew. Crybaby wakes up inside of a toy box and realizes she's in the Big Bad Wolf's house. Now, in this room, it just looks like an average house, but outside of it, it resembles more of an icy cave. The Big Bad Wolf is watching her on TV and forces her to make milk and cookies for him, so at first she's scared and sad, of course, but then she remembers the little glass vial that the cashier gave her. The cashier with black eyes. It's almost as if the cashier knew that this would happen. So, Crybaby poisons him successfully and also attacks him, as she should, getting her revenge and eventually finally being able to escape. And a really fun fact that not a lot of people know is that Milk and Cookies was originally supposed to be a part of the Dollhouse EP, or at least connect to it. This song was written to be a part 2 to Dead to Me, hence why she says she pulls off black so well as a direct callback to Dead to Me's storyline. However, she rewrote some of the parts to fit Crybaby's storyline better, and this is also the reason why she uses Crybaby's old name, Melatonin. Crybaby meets a blue boy and a girl that she calls
La basic bitch.
but we like to assume in the fandom that her name is Bethann. Crybaby now has some animosity towards Bethann after the birthday party incident, but to make matters worse, Crybaby is also interested in her crush. Both of them are competing to get Blue Boy's attention, but perhaps Crybaby is doing it out of pure spite and competition, not even love. For once, Crybaby is also in the wrong in this situation, once again displaying another mirror of what her mom's behaviors are. History continues to repeat itself. In the end, Bethann leaves with Blue Boy and Crybaby is left alone and sad, now feeling insecure and feeling like she isn't good enough for anyone. I don't think a lot of people realize that in Mrs. Potato Head, she's trying to look like Bethann. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and a bigger chest. She wants to look older than Bethann. She starts watching all the TV programs and putting on pounds of makeup, even stuffing her bra to look like all the other older girls who seem much more appealing to the boys. But then, a movie about a girl named Mrs. Potato Head starts to play. This movie shows the story of a girl who changed her appearance just for her husband, and only for him to leave her for another woman once she became undesirable and too old looking for him. She ruined her face for a man who never really loved her in the first place. I thought it was a really cool detail that her appointment was on Halloween, a day where we all dress up and pretend to be someone that we're not, just like Crybaby and Mrs. Potato Head were doing in the story. Once the movie comes to an end, Crybaby realizes she doesn't want to end up like Mrs. Potato Head, so she doesn't need a man to make her feel worth anything, and she doesn't have to look like everyone else to be loved. She can be herself. Now, it's heavily debated whether the deluxe songs are canon to Crybaby's story or not, but depending on where you place them, they could fit in perfectly in theory. Playdate seems to be about Alphabet Boy or Johnny, but I'd say more likely Alphabet Boy. He seemed like a selfish child who never wanted to listen to Crybaby's thoughts or feelings on anything. He just wanted to play his favorite board games and use Crybaby for her body. Teddy Bear is speculated to be about a whole other character than Crybaby, although that would make sense. Why else would she be in the storybook image? Well, I think Teddy Bear could definitely work as another imagination of hers. She has a lot of imaginary Russian friends, and this evil teddy bear could be her mean imaginary friend that is the embodiment of the big bad wolf or other people in her life who had hurt her. Almost like a coping mechanism, if you will. It's psychologically proven that whatever children play can reflect what kind of things they observe and experience, so if your kids have violent imaginary friends about a teddy bear killing you, you might have done something very wrong. Now, there are two songs that I personally would not put into Crybaby's story because they just seem like the subject matter is more about Melanie's story than Crybaby's, and honestly, all of these could be up for interpretation because I personally feel that if it doesn't have a music video, it doesn't have to be a part of Crybaby's story. It could very much be put in somewhere if we really wanted it to. I'm sure Gingerbread Man could be later on in her life or something, but personally, I just don't really see these two songs being a part of her story, and those songs are Cake and Gingerbread Man, and Cake is actually my favorite song from the Crybaby era. I love that song. It's the song that kind of got me into Melanie in the first place, so it's very special to me. But with that said, I don't think it's really a part of Crybaby's story, so yeah, it's really up for you to decide. Do you think it should be in her story or not? It's up to you, because as long as it doesn't have a music video, it's really up for interpretation. And this especially goes for the Dollhouse EP because that was way before Crybaby was even invented as a character. Now, with this newfound love for herself, Crybaby sits in her bedroom, finding a mysterious bottle on the table. She drinks it, and it puts her in a trance. She starts to see the cashier and the nurse, the two empaths who guided her through her struggles, just before she passes out and has a very strange dream. Her dream shows her and her stuffed animals taking down these balloon-like people who all have similar thoughts and personalities, but also not really any personalities at all. Showing that Crybaby has fully accepted herself and learned that it's okay to not be like everyone else, and we should all be a little bit crazy sometimes because
all the best people are.
This music video is so iconic and displays Melanie's artistry so well. I mean, the CGI is incredible and the Alice in Wonderland references, it's so good. She wakes up from her dream and is immediately greeted to the sound of her alarm clock going off. It's time for what she calls the first day of hell. So right after Mad Hatter, we enter the second album.
K-12, a film by Melanie Martinez.
So, Crybaby gets ready to be sent off to her boarding school, the K-12 sleepaway school. She will be living here for the next half of her life until she graduates. And although the school and its bus are literally so majestic and breathtaking appearance-wise, unfortunately the people inside of these facilities are not so great. You'll see. Here we have the reveal that Crybaby has a pet spider named Felipe, which eventually will die and reincarnate into something a little more sinister. The school has a very strict uniform policy. Girls wear pink dresses and boys wear blue pants. However, Crybaby decides to customize her uniform and rebel to show that she's different from the rest. She dyed her uniform purple and embroidered flowers on the sleeves, showing a mix between blue and pink. Crybaby talks about a nightmare she had about the gap in her teeth since that's her biggest insecurity. She's constantly bullied for it. And she also says she saw some sort of angel named Lilith. I also haven't seen anybody talk about this, the fact that her brother was probably sent to the sleepaway school a little while ago, which is why he's absent from most of Crybaby's life. So Crybaby gets on the bus and meets with her friend Angelita. Now, there's been some debate whether Angelita and the cashier are the same person or just happen to be played by the same actress. Chaos ensues on the bus as immature children are smoking, putting their bare butts on windows, and just doing a lot of adult stuff together. And the bus driver
Don't give a fuck.
In fact, the bus driver gets so distracted that he ends up almost accidentally killing his own students. He swerves off the road and ends up in the water, but thankfully, Angelita and Crybaby's powers come to the rescue, pulling them out of the water and into the air. Not only is this scene aesthetically pleasing, but it also is a great display that the empath's powers might seem scary, but can be used for great things. Angelita and Crybaby eventually make it to their class successfully, but they're late, causing their chalk-sniffing teacher, Miss Daphne, to be very upset with them. Before class, they like to play the Pledge of Allegiance. However, one of the students named Henry refuses to rise and explains that liberty and justice for all is bullshit. This scene is so important now more than ever, and it's unfortunate that no matter how many months go by, or even years, this scene will always be relevant in some way. Anyways, unfortunately, Henry gets taken away by security and they put him in the holding room, whatever that entails, and Crybaby tries to just focus on her work, but gets distracted by Brandon, which is a boy sitting right behind her, and he's like the stereotypical popular boy that everybody has a crush on and everybody wants, and Kelly, the blonde bully character, she really likes Brandon as well, so it's another pacify her situation. They both like the boy. And it says, "You at recess with Crybaby drawn dead on the ground next to a tombstone," which, keep a pin in this for later, alright? Keep this in mind. Angelita and Crybaby utilize nap time as a way to talk about Kelly's note. Angelita insists that she fights back using her powers, however, due to her sensitivity, Crybaby does not really think violence is the answer. Angelita then suggests maybe you should ask your mom for advice, but we all know how that would go, considering she's always blackout drunk. The next day at recess, Brandon sits next to Crybaby, which he really just added fuel to the fire. He ruined everything with this move. Kelly notices and starts attacking Crybaby, stabbing her arm, which, it looks so painful. And also, did you notice that she has a scar throughout the film? Really great touch, Melanie. So, despite Crybaby's initial resistance to resort to violence, she is now forced to. She creates the most iconic scene in the movie, choking Kelly with her pigtails, then eventually getting caught by Miss Daphne and thrown into the waiting room of the principal's office. Now, why are they in the waiting room and not in the actual principal's office? Because the principal is discussing a very important conversation with one of the teachers. In my opinion, Miss Harper is the only one that actually does genuinely care for the students, but unfortunately gets fired due to wanting to transition into a woman. And this guy is inspired after Donald Trump, which we love a diss. We really need one right now. Crybaby also finds out that the students are being brainwashed with pink pills, which will make them listen to whatever the faculty tells them to do. So after finding this out, Crybaby tries to help the students by poisoning the principal. However, he is revived and not dead. Dang it! Crybaby then attends her next class, Show and Tell. In this class, Miss Penelope and the students force her to perform for them. They can do whatever they want to her, objectifying her and treating her like a doll. In the end, Crybaby's body physically turns into the doll. Now, this could be Miss Penelope's doing, or it could be her powers doing this to her, manifesting how she feels in a more physical way. Either way, she falls onto the floor with exhaustion, showing her guts out for everyone to see. This is a metaphor for how people love to use you until you're no longer useful to them anymore, or no longer attractive and easy to exploit. Angelita helps turn Crybaby back into her physical form, but they get caught by the nurses. The nurses then try to experiment on both of them, but thankfully a special someone comes to the rescue. We finally officially meet Lilith here, the mysterious and beautiful lady that's been haunting the narrative of this very video and Crybaby's dreams. Angelita and Crybaby beg for Lilith to bring them with her, but she insists that they must continue living their truth and continuing with their life. This scene hits so much harder after Portals and knowing how Crybaby's story ends, but again, you gotta keep that in mind for later. And speaking of Portals, the Contortionist music video was supposed to take place in this ballroom, which, I would have loved to see it. And strangely enough, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but in this scene and in the Contortionist, Crybaby sneezes. Anyway, so Crybaby heads off to drama club where she is faced with lots of misogyny and lots of sexist comments from the teacher and the students alike. However, she clocks them with this.
Having a larger capacity to feel and express emotion are one of the many qualities that make us superior to your kind.
Drama Club has to be one of the most underrated songs in her discography, and honestly music videos as well. I love this music video. Crybaby uses her powers to iron somebody's face, which is really disturbing, but also kind of iconic. And then Crybaby also is able to help all of the students that are brainwashed by the pills in the audience, sending them to finally officially kill the principal. Let's go. And then Angelita and Crybaby bury him and then play tennis. That's just a normal Sunday for all of us ladies, right guys? So one of these students from the school were very impressed by Angelita and Crybaby's ability to kill off the principal, and that student is Celeste. We briefly saw her show up on the bus earlier on, and now she's officially one of Crybaby's friends, which I'm so happy for her. She deserves these friends. So they are now halfway through their school experience, and this is the point in life where we go from girls to women. Angelita gets her first period and needs a tampon, but
It's fucking empty.
Thankfully, one of the nurses walking by conveniently had a tampon in her pocket, so Crybaby successfully steals this, and Angelita will no longer have to use the toilet paper method, which, if you know, you know. And then this is where we hear Strawberry Shortcake, which is my personal favorite song from the album. This song means so much to me because I feel like no matter where you are or who you are, if you're femme presenting in any way, you're going to experience what the song is about. And it's basically about objectification and victim blaming, how when boys are lusting over us and touching us in ways that we don't like, the teachers tell us, oh, well, you shouldn't have worn that short skirt. You shouldn't have worn the noodle straps. Excuse me, I want to wear what I want to wear without some guy commenting on me. Or even if I'm fully covered up, we're still told weird, gross stuff all the time. It is their responsibility to be a proper gentleman. So yeah, Crybaby and her friends are experiencing a lot of objectification from all of the male students now that their bodies are becoming more of women's bodies. And I really, really appreciate this song for everything that it is. And another thing I appreciate is that the older the characters get, the older that their makeup and their hairstyles look. So for example, now we're in Lunchbox Friends where Crybaby is much older, so she doesn't wear pigtails as much and her makeup is a little more mature, and everybody in this scene is glowing. Now, you thought Kelly was bad in kindergarten? Oh honey, now we're in high school, where she is forcing her clique to wear these plastic Party City blonde wigs, which is very intentional, and she wants everybody to look the same. They all have to have the same body, same hair, everything. She's forcing everybody to conform to what she wants. Kelly convinces Crybaby to sit with her at lunch, and Celeste and Angelita are very mad about this, which is very reasonable. However, Crybaby does have a motive with this. She wants to try to convince these girls that they don't all have to look the same and that they can actually genuinely be friends if they're willing to, but she learns that they just want a fake relationship and don't actually care about each other, so Crybaby ends up going like, never mind, screw you guys, I can't change your minds, I don't want Lunchbox Friends, I want a real connection, and by doing this and standing up for herself, she ends up meeting another empath in the school named Magnolia. She's such a sweetheart, I love her. While introducing Magnolia to the friend group, Crybaby notices that a member of Kelly's clique is actually also an empath, and this happens to be Fleur. So they're like, how are we gonna get her away from Kelly so we can talk to her and get her out of this weird clique she's in? Magnolia suggests a food fight, and Crybaby is so real in this scene. This is exactly how I am when I have to do stuff that's rebellious. I'm like, I don't want to do it. But they successfully start the food fight, and Kelly brings Fleur with her into the bathroom. Now, I'm actually not going to go into any intense detail here or show much on screen because it can be very triggering to me and a lot of others, but basically, to put it simply, Fleur is struggling with an eating disorder, which is being enabled by Kelly. However, Crybaby is successfully able to get her out of Kelly's clique and into her friend group instead. And Fleur and Crybaby actually swap eyes, which is really interesting to think about the fact that now they're just using each other's eyes for the rest of the film. Like, Crybaby's eyes are her eyes. That's kind of crazy to think about. Now, remember the principal? I mean, of course you do. Who could forget a face like that? So, when Fleur and Crybaby return to the cafeteria to reconvene with the rest of the students, they get ratted out by Kelly, who tells the principal's son, Leo, that Crybaby is the one who started the food fight, and, yeah, Crybaby's thrown into detention, and in detention, it is pretty ruthless. The nurses inject some sort of substance, I assume whatever the pills have in them as well, to brainwash all the students to just smile and sit there and listen and obey. But within their minds, they're in some sort of weird dream state where they're imagining performing for students who are never really satisfied with the performance. Crybaby is then successfully able to use her powers to escape Leo's detention, and then she's able to go to biology class where she reconvenes with Angelita. Now, she notices that Angelita is harboring a crush to their biology teacher, but unfortunately the teacher reciprocates. This song and music video is very uncomfortable, and it's the taboo of the album. Every album has a taboo song, and Teacher's Pet is K through 12s. Now, this song, I have a huge pet peeve, not with the song, but with what people do with the song. Basically, on TikTok and other platforms, it's been this weird trend to make gotcha club stories or even thirst trap edits with this song, usually depicting a funny student and teacher relationship, and not in a way you might be thinking, like, oh, spreading awareness and showing how gross it is. No, I mean romanticizing it. It's really disturbing. So, if you somehow didn't realize, this song is not romanticizing or glamorizing it, and you should definitely take down those edits, please. God. It's disgusting. And I didn't notice anybody else calling this out, so I felt like I kind of had to. The teacher is just about to use some sort of weird dissection tool on Angelita, but thankfully Crybaby comes to the rescue and Angelita shows off her awesome knife skills, killing the biology teacher. You go! Get rid of that man!
Kill that boy! Kill that boy! Kill that boy!
Now, throughout this video, I have been telling Crybaby's story through Crybaby's eyes for the most part. However, there's one little detail I have purposely left out until this point, and that is Ben. So, Ben is Crybaby's love interest in K-12, and a fun fact for you guys, it was originally supposed to be Johnny. If Johnny's actor never cut contact with Melanie, we would have got Johnny instead of Ben, which would have been really interesting, and I do think the bubble blowing scene would have been so much more romantic because it would have been a callback to Soap. Like, that would have been so cute. However, I do definitely prefer Ben to Johnny, so I'm not really complaining by his replacement at all. I just thought I would mention that. Now, Ben was very sweet to want to take things slow and not sign the note, so maybe Crybaby would have to guess who it is, and she actually assumed it was a girl, confirming that she's also bisexual, just like Melanie in real life. But anyways, the note doesn't have a name on it, so unfortunately, since Leo is watching in the cameras, he decides this will be his way to get Crybaby to listen to him, and to get their plan to be foiled, because they are also talking about burning down the school so everyone can escape. However, Leo can't let that happen, so Leo ends up taking credit for the letter, which surprises Crybaby because 1, she thought it was a girl that wrote it, and 2, she didn't expect it to be the principal's son of all people. So she accepts to go to the dance with him, and this was originally supposed to be her plan to keep her friends close and enemies closer. However, it didn't really work out the way she wanted it to because her friends are very mad at her for even thinking of going with him. Now, I personally see the situation as a more two-sided thing. I think as long as Crybaby maybe give them more of a heads up before she did this, they would have been a lot less mad, probably still upset, but definitely not as mad. It wouldn't have came off as so selfish. However, she was saying when she was crying in the bathroom, she did actually feel something for Leo, so maybe because she thought he wrote the letter, she was kind of feeling smitten by him. But regardless, don't worry because things end up working out for Crybaby and her friends, as Crybaby is able to shapeshift into a ghost named Lorelei's body, seducing Leo in the closet and trapping him in there. All of the students rush out of the school, everyone except Ben and Crybaby, who are trapped on the balcony together. But thankfully Ben comes up with an idea inspired after what he saw earlier, and they're successfully able to escape, leaving Leo and the school to float up into the air forever. Dun dun dun! Crybaby and her friends then notice Lilith's portal opening up, which each of them go in one by one. Everyone except Angelita and Crybaby. Crybaby hesitates for a moment.
It's life. It's death. It's life. It's death.
Now, before we get into anything else, I want to preface this by saying Portals is my favorite album. I am a Portals defender down. So if you expected me to dog on this album and how much I hated it, you're not gonna hear that here. This is all gonna be very positive. But the Portals era was unfortunately cut short due to money and time constraints. It took several months just to edit one music video due to all of the special effects required for such an immersive and whimsical world, especially considering how expensive it is to hire a 3D artist every single time and have prosthetics. We're talking full head-to-toe prosthetics every single video. So, if I ever do a video about Melanie's career, I'll definitely touch on this subject more, but for this video, I just wanted to briefly mention it, that way you have a heads up for once we get into more of the lore. So, Crybaby's death was left up for interpretation, which from an artistic standpoint makes a lot of sense, but it does cause for a lot of debate within the fandom. There are two different ways that we've all agreed Crybaby died, and the endings are either the Trilogy Tour ending or the Portal ending. So the Trilogy Tour ending is what people took as kind of like When you see her in the trilogy tour, she gets shot by Cupid's arrow. They believe that if Kelly stood there and hesitating, it could have been her realization that she can kill off Crybaby, shooting her with an arrow like in the trilogy tour ending. And I personally interpret this scene of Kelly more as her realizing she doesn't really deserve to escape the school because she lost everything and she hurt a lot of people. Her kind of coming to terms with, wait a second, I'm a horrible person. I don't deserve to escape like everybody else. But you could interpret it as she wanted to make her note from earlier, which we put a pin on a long time ago, literal. But either way, her note, no matter how Crybaby died, still stands as foreshadowing. There's also the other ending, which is the portal ending that I personally align with more, which is that they did go through the portal, perhaps Crybaby and Angelita together holding hands. They went into the portal and their physical bodies were left behind. It's hard to describe without showing it visually, but basically they went into the portal, their souls went in, but their bodies just flopped onto the ground, and bystanders who escaped the school probably found their bodies and buried them. There is a really brief scene in K-12 where Angelita and Crybaby are talking about what lives they've had or maybe will have, and one of the things they suggest is conjoined twins. So people theorize that the creature has 4 eyes because they fused together, and I personally really like this theory because of the fact that they probably did go into the portal together, maybe even holding hands, so Angelita made her feel more comfortable. And the creature does have blue eyes, which Crybaby has always been depicted as having brown eyes. So who has blue eyes? Angelita. I don't know, just something to consider. But anyways, I'm going to refer to Crybaby's new form as the creature because that's how Melanie has usually addressed them. And in the music and music videos, Melanie refers to the creature as they, them, so I will be using those pronouns for the creature. In Death, our first music video of the era, Crybaby is being buried, and people are leaving flowers for her, but remembering her is actually what's keeping her from being able to move on. This is the reveal of the creature. They remain a floating soul attached to their old body due to all of the connections they still have with everyone else, but in the end, they break the almost umbilical cord between them, escaping through the dirt as what they describe to be a In Void, the creature is then forced to go through all of their memories and go into a void-like state, cleansing themselves of their past memories and trauma, surrounded by many different versions of themselves, even being faced with the most disgusting bugs and filth that they felt about themselves as Crybaby, but turning that filth into beauty. I love the little detail that when she sings My Fickle Insecurities, she adds a lisp to her voice because her teeth have always been her biggest insecurity growing up. In the end, the creature escapes the void and now officially is rebirthed into a physical body. As this whole journey, we were just watching them be a soul, but now they're a physical being. I hope that makes sense. They fall out of what I consider to be Lilith's castle right into a coliseum. They discover a well and decide to hop into it, befriending some of the Fae that they were introduced to. Tunnel vision is where we get to see all of the creature's powers displayed, and also many callbacks to Crybaby and K-12. I'm really surprised this music video isn't more loved because of all of the amazing callbacks we get. The braid scene is referenced, the creature drowns themselves in tears, they're chased up a hill for a photo, they stretch their face like Mad Hatter, and their eyes even glow all one color like the empath powers that they had before, just elevated to look more whimsical and powerful. In the end, we see the creature has become some sort of cultural phenomenon. There's been rumors that a nightmarish creature, some sort of urban legend, walks around the Earth.
An entity that apparently arrived earlier this year through an alien portal. If any doubts remained about the existence of extraterrestrials, consider them quashed. We have tangible evidence of their presence all over South America, all within the last 6 months. Researchers have discovered this, a gargantuan egg encased in an unusual pink goo. The sightings don't stop there.
Who knows what's happening?
Eyewitnesses report a mysterious figure adorned with multiple sets of eyes and elongated elvish ears.
Could this video just be a marketing tactic for our world? Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm just so obsessed with this video, I had to put it in here somewhere. However, I do think there's a slight chance that it could be true to Crybaby's story as well, because there's a video game of the creature. If this isn't just simply a metaphor, then it's also some sort of pop culture sensation. Anyways, the creature goes into a pit of mud, sprouting their wings. The Fae do a ceremony to celebrate them earning their wings, full of mushrooms and adorable fairy playgrounds. But in the end, they all fall to the ground very exhausted, except for the creature, who decides to stay awake to watch a giant beanstalk grow. They climb the beanstalk, and since they just grew their wings, they're not able to fly yet, but they successfully make it to the top and decide to take a little nap on the flower. So cute, I love this. They have a dream about being a snail in the dry desert, looking for a wet and moist environment to thrive in. A lot of people don't know that this is the creature's dream after falling asleep, so here's your context. This is the least popular music video from the era, most likely due to it being more tame, simple, and more like a visualizer. I personally think it's perfect for the song. I don't really know what else to expect from a slower ballad type song. That's why usually artists don't make music videos of songs like this for a reason. The creature then wakes up from their dream, realizing they weren't just sleeping, they were in diapause, which is essentially hibernation for insects, if you didn't know. The creature then learns how to fly and becomes more of a butterfly instead of just a tiny meek caterpillar. They fly around the world and discover that it's not any different than how it used to be when they lived as Crybaby. Men still rule the world and try to find ways to control minds, this time with a phone instead of a pill. People are getting so distracted by their phones they don't notice they're trapped in a mud pit, perhaps the same one from Tunnel Vision, or even a horrifying giant reincarnated Felipe. Yeah, he even changed his appearance a little bit. It's kind of scary. Anyway, the creature watches and observes, no longer having to interact with the conflict themselves because they're not human anymore. And unfortunately, this is where we leave off with the creature, as the next music video is taking place in the same universe but not showing the creature at all. So this is the last time we ever see them. We don't really know what came of them. However, from the music we get in Portals, as well as taking the storyboards, hints, and tour visuals into account, we can certainly piece together the rest of the creature's life. In my opinion, Battle of the Larynx and the Contortionist as a double feature would have been the ideal way to officially end off the Portals era. I think it would have been a huge final hurrah of the era, but I also think that the Battle of the Larynx video would have been really hard to shoot with the limited amount of money and resources Atlantic provides, so I understand why maybe this wasn't really going to be possible. However, story-wise, this is what I think was going to happen. So we see the storybook being told to the pet leech and leeches. Most likely depicted through the creature, they are the main character of the storybook. Initially trapped from the dragon, a damsel in distress if you will, but stand up for themselves and ultimately become their own knight in shining armor, defeating the dragon on a giant hilltop. The creature now has the confidence to reveal themselves to the world, no longer vulnerable and scared like they once were, to stand up for themselves and make their voice known. Then walking into a giant ballroom, we hear the folks in the ballroom gasp in surprise. They can't believe the creature is actually real, and this is where the creature begins to perform for them, possibly a callback to Show and Tell, but this time with much more bending and snapping. They end up going too hard on themselves for wanting to give the best performance they can, or perhaps are being forced to perform. The creature ends up collapsing onto the floor, and after this point, they probably return to the forest with the fairies because humans just won't accept them for who they are. They see them more as a fascinating creature to dissect and watch, rather than an actual being with emotion. Moon Cycle would probably be more similar to Light Shower, a simpler video to the creature singing about the connection to nature they have and their feminine body. It would definitely be very aesthetically pleasing. The story of the creature would hit a huge point in nymphology, where I imagine several men come into the fairies' forest starting to take over their land, wanting to cut down all the trees and make it into a corporate space of some sort. So the creature stands up for the other fairies, protecting their land and fighting the selfish men who think that they're the prophecy. The music video could really be a powerful way to not only be a metaphor for women standing up against abuse, but also a more visual representation of the indigenous peoples who had their land taken over by selfish white men. Something that Milk of the Siren actually does speak on, but the deluxe are probably not part of Crybaby's story. Anyways, in the end, the men burn down the forest, which is why evil is shown as this fiery and angry song. The fairies fight back, most likely killing all of the men, but now the forest is on fire. Perhaps the creature makes a final sacrifice to save the forest and the fairies from burning down, but the sacrifice is what kills off the creature. Throughout the creature's entire existence, we've seen it as a metaphor for a butterfly's life, from them sprouting their wings and being in a chrysalis to perhaps ending off their life in the same way that a butterfly's does. Their lifespan is extremely short, they usually only last for a couple of months or even weeks. This is why we hear Womb, a song explaining another life Crybaby is about to enter, being reborn again and again. Just as Lilith said, Crybaby has had many lives and will continue to have more. She'll always be a boy or a girl or everyone in between. And so, this is officially the end of Crybaby's story, but also this video. Thank you guys so much if you made it this far. Comment a rose emoji or just say the word rose if you can't use emojis, because I want to know who actually sat through this entire retelling of Crybaby's story. Thank you if you did, and even if you just skimmed through, thank you as well. It just means the world to me you watched it, period. Make sure to leave a comment and a like. I don't usually ask people to do this, but this video took a very long time. I enjoyed editing this with every second, don't get me wrong. However, I'm so excited to finally get this out because, as you can see, the blackout isn't the only thing that has happened since now. We have had a whole week gone by and we have gotten our first single for the new album, which is such a banger, by the way, Stream Possession. However, I was trying to get this done before anything new came out, so luckily I got it done before the album came out or was even announced, but I was really trying to hurry, and this is actually a really fast time for me to edit such a video like this. Usually my video essays take months to edit, so I'm really proud I was able to get it done within a week. However, with the time constraints I had, it was very intense. However, like I said, I really enjoyed making this video. I loved getting brushed up and, you know, being able to also have benefits myself of being able to catch up on the lore, make sure I didn't get anything wrong as we go into this new era, and thank you guys so much for liking the original video. I hope all of the folks that watched that one will watch this one now, because I genuinely think this is the best version of the Crybaby lore video I could have ever made. I think that other one was really well written, like, narratively. However, like I said, there was just so many problems with the editing, and I just felt like we needed to wait until the Portals era was over. So now that it is, I think this made for a great new version of that video. I hope this can help you guys out and educate you on some stuff that you didn't know. I actually have a lot of fun facts that I removed from this video because I realized they have to do more with Melanie as a person instead of Crybaby, so maybe for her birthday or just for fun at some point, I will also make a video about her career if that's something that interests you. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I got everything right and I explained it in a more straightforward and easy to understand way. And with that said, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I've said that like 5 times. Bye guys, I love you.
I know that I'm more than you bargained for. I'm not some story's hero. Won't give up and give them a good excuse to write me off like a weirdo. Show the ones who doubt me that I'm not the loser that they thought. Got nothing left to lose, just gotta prove that I'm good enough. I'll fight till 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 I'm good enough.